Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Ideas Times 2. Welcome. Today we have a tutorial and I'm very excited about it because I have a vintage sewing pattern envelope and I want to use it as a journal cover. And so we're going to go through that process today and figure out how to do that. I've used sewing patterns before for different projects. They're just so cute and fun to use in different projects. For example, some altered clipboards. There's one way I've used them. Cindy made me this one, and the whole background is the pattern tissue paper, so she did that for me, and this one was one I had made. So you can make tags and pockets, and you know, this color, this sort of crafty type color is fun to make things look old and vintage. So you can use lots of parts of the pattern, and today for me it's the cover. I've never made a cover, so it'll be fun. I can't wait. It's going to be very similar. I had mentioned making one of these a couple of videos ago when I had made our vintage seed packet journal cover, and the method of this is going to be very similar, but it's not exactly the same, so it'll be fun to experiment with another little bit of a change on that. So I've gotten started on this. I cut it out, so I had cut off the sort of header on that and just wanted to use the illustration itself, and then made it sort of the size I wanted. I think this is the size I'm going to stick with. Right now it's drying, so let me just explain to you what I've done here. So I might just keep that. It's just a little bit over 5.5, and I believe it was 7 inches tall. All right, so what I have done, I simply cut the pattern in, separated the front and the back. So I just cut it in half, sort of front to back in half. And I want to use this for the back cover too. We'll see how that works out, but I'd like to use that for the back. So after I did that, then I cut this down to size. Now, it is pretty fragile. It's not extremely fragile, like it's not going to tear apart when I touch it, but you can see that my blade on my cutter was not sharp, and so I wrecked this edge up here. I also wrecked this down here, but it's okay. It's going to be the image on top of the cover. So I plan on making the cover out of this accordion style file folder. I split the front and back of that, and the accordion part was on the middle, on the inside of that. So I'm going to use this for the cover. It actually this is more brown or rusty color, and this is more burgundy, but I think the colors don't look too bad together. So that's cool. I'm not sure how it's all going to pan out yet. We're going to figure that out together. But I thought I would use this because it's very sturdy, very stiff and sturdy. I might use 2 layers together as well. We'll see about that as well. So yeah, so I'm going to make those decisions later, but I wanted to let you know I'm making the cover out of this. And initially then what I did was glue this down on a piece of cardstock so it'd be less flimsy, just to make it more sturdy and strong to work with, since this paper is almost 50 years old. Alright, so what I used is gel medium, and I used Dina Wakley brand of gel medium. I really like it. I have only tried a few other kinds. Maybe that would be a good video, is to try a couple of different gel mediums to see which one is best for attaching paper to paper. But I do like this one a lot. It's a little pricier than other ones that I have seen. We all know Mod Podge, right? We all know Mod Podge. And they have so many different varieties of Mod Podge now. Maybe they have something that's very good for this type of thing. But for now, this is what I had on hand. So this is what I'm using. And I applied the gel medium onto the back of my paper. You could also apply it onto your base paper as well, and just give it a good old even coat with a foam brush, and then slap this down. Make sure it's totally pressed down and then let it dry. And this is probably what I should have done, is I probably should have glued this on and then cut my pattern, but I wasn't thinking along those lines, and so I didn't, but it's gonna be fine. It's vintage. It's gonna have a little bit of a ragged look on this illustration, and I think that's perfectly fine. I might wind up collaging a little bit, like maybe putting fabric or lace or something on here as well, so it'll work out. So as I'm speaking, I'm trying to feel if this is, I think this may be ready. One thing about the matte medium, the gel medium, is you do have to let it dry completely, because it gets to be almost like slippery and slick and hard to work with if you don't let it dry completely. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Cute. I found some fabric that matches the colors on this too, and I'm just pumped. That's going to be so fun. All right, so now we have an image. I think I'm just going to kind of go a little simple and keep this as my main image. I do think a little bit of lace or fabric, like a fabric ruffle or something, would be cute on here. So, and like I said, I did find some that I think would match too. But I think I'll decide first on my journal cover size. So this was, I think it was 5.5 by 7. Yep, that is correct. 5.5 by 7. So I'm going to do, let me look here. So I'm going to do about a 1/2 inch wider than my image here, a 1/2 inch wider on all of the edges. Account for a spine. I need to make sure I have enough for a good chunky spine, and actually might just figure it out using this. Whatever's left over will be my spine, because it seems to be a pretty good size for a book cover. So let me figure that out. Be back in a minute. All right, so I'm back. I did trim this up a little bit, made the edges even, because I had to cut off all the accordion like little pieces that were still hanging on there. And I determined my size of cover just from using this image. I figured out my size, and that'll make a perfect front and back cover size. Obviously my back is going to be this, and then it left me 2 inches in the middle, in the center, for a spine, which is also a pretty good size too. I think that's a great size. So I'm going to cut this into 3 pieces: the front cover, back cover, spine, and then I will glue these 2 layers together. I think it'll be a good weight. So I'm going to glue those together, and before I cut anything, I did mark the edges, because I really like this rounded corner right here. So I just used one as a pattern and drew a line there so I can cut all those corners the exact same as well. All right, I cut each of those pieces into 3. So now I've got my front cover, back cover, spine, and each of these is two pieces. It really was. I had to cut off just a few inches from the bottom of the file folder, but other than that, it worked out to be a great size. So all I'm going to do now is glue these together, and I'm going to use Fabri-Tac for this. So I'll get started and glue these together. Just make sure you get the edges. I'm gonna sew these. Sewing journal, so pretty appropriate to sew around the edges as well. You could sew around each one separately before you started gluing if you'd like, or just sew them after they get all done. make sure I've got, oh, let's see. I kind of have the rounded edges together so I don't have to cut as many edges. Just like that. And if they need trimming, which it looks like they do need trimming a little bit, we'll go ahead and take care of that after it's all dry. So I'll just keep doing this and I'll be back. All right, I'm all set. Double layers of the heavy file folder, accordion folder, double layers of all these. And then I did sew the edges. So it's kind of a rose pink color on that. I did not sew anything on here because I'm going to cover this with fabric, so I didn't do any sewing on that. This one I made a mistake, but I started gluing something already, but this is on the inside cover. I picked a pink paper that matches my cover. I didn't have enough paper to do both the inside, front, and back cover the same, but I have another one here. So all I did with these papers, I cut them the exact same size as the covers. If you prefer, you could cut it a little smaller and have a little border, right? But I just decided to cover the whole inside, front, and back covers. So this is my front cover here. This will be my back cover, and all I did was simply just glue it right on. I sewed it first, and my machine went through both layers of this accordion folder paper. Not paper exactly, right? It's pretty sturdy stuff, but it went through it okay, but I didn't want to risk the chance of having one more layer and then the thing wasn't going to work for me, so I just went ahead and sewed this separately. Get some nice glue. I'm using Fabri-Tac for that. And then put it right on. Now the front inside cover I did have to trim a little, but it should fit pretty well. Should fit pretty well. We'll see. A little trimming. So trim if you need to, no problem. I didn't measure anything. I just like held this up to the paper cutter and just trimmed on the side of it. All right, so I think I will also ink around the edges. And I don't want heavy inking, I don't think, but I think a light layer of ink on this would be good. So I will be doing that as well. All right, so let me show you what I found for what I decided to do for the cover. I was really hemming and hawing on this. I could not figure out what to do. So here's my pattern cover, and I glued that onto the cardstock and have a nice sturdy piece that I can now, glue somewhere else, or I could even make this into a soft cover, like maybe glue it onto a paper bag journal or something like that. I mean, it's nice and sturdy now and it could be used for a number of things, but I wanted to use it on this harder cover. So this is ready to go. I did very lightly ink the edges. I roughed it up in a few spots as well. And then I sewed with that same sort of rose color. I sewed around the edge of this. All right, and then I did want to like incorporate something else, like buttons or fabric or lace or something. So I found this rickrack. It's a vintage rickrack. And it's not quite burgundy. It's more like a brown than a burgundy, but it pretty complements it pretty well. And it's so narrow, I couldn't decide. Like, I didn't want to make a glue mess or anything, and I didn't feel like I could hold it steady enough to actually sew it down. So I hand stitched it down, just because it's so narrow. And so I feel like that's going to hold it really well. Plus I'll be gluing on this, and so that will actually glue it down as well. Glue the stitches down. Okay, so, and I did as I mentioned before, I do think this looks really good on this color of file folder, but I went one step further and went ahead and found another piece of paper. So this is a burgundy, sort of grungy looking burgundy piece of paper. Just paper, it's not cardstock, and I sewed around the edges of that. Since this is a sewing journal, I'm just going all out on the sewing. So there's that, and what I'm going to do is glue this on to that, and then I will glue it onto the cover like that. So I think it just gives it one more layer, helps the pattern to stand out even a little bit further, plus it's the burgundy color, so that'll bring out some more colors. I felt like that was a pretty good mix there. And then I had ruffled it up on a piece of cardstock. That's kind of what I do, because it makes it kind of easier to glue down that strip if it's paper. So I just ruffled up a piece of fabric. I showed you guys these fabrics I found. So it's just a scrap of this fabric here. And this strip is about 1.5 inches wide. Ruffled it up so it winds up to be about 2 inches long this way. And originally, I don't know if you can see it, originally I put that rickrack on there, but then I thought I liked the look of these vintage buttons on here, so that does kind of cover up the rickrack, so that kind of defeated the purpose of that. But and then I stitched them on with some embroidery stitched, I guess. You just put one giant stitch and then tie it in the front of the button like that. So those are actually sewn right into the fabric plus cardstock that's back here. And I thought that made a nice little embellishment. So that's going to go up here. And then I kind of thought less was more. I kind of like that just the way it is. So the spine doesn't need to be decorated or anything because this is going to go on top of the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. Get my glue working. Okay. And I'm going to put, a fair amount of glue on here. We want it to stick really well. And then I'm going to just smooth it down a little bit so all the edges are completely covered. All right, and then center top to bottom, side to side, and then just press that down. There we go. All right, so then this edge, actually I kind of prefer to do it on here. So this edge will be glued onto that same piece of fabric to make our hinge. So, and I'm probably going to have to add a little bit of glue on this, but I'm just going to do it. So here I'm going to line it up with the lines on my mat board here. I'm going to line it up so it's nice and even. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap, maybe 1/8 of an inch or so, just so that it folds up nicely, which it does really well. The Fabri-Tac is gripping that already, so I was able to lift that up. And when I said I'd probably have to glue a little bit more, well, actually I did a pretty good job of guessing how wide this is, but I might have to fill in just a little bit of glue underneath this edge here. Okay, and then okay, there we go. Now, lining it up with one of the lines on my mat board here, my cutting board. Okay, making sure we're nice and lined up so that the edge is straight across. Make sure this gap is wide enough to fold, and it is pretty good. Love it. So this is what it's going to look like, minus this glue. Alright, so now it is time to glue this on. So I will probably speed this part up a little bit. There we go. So now the front cover is decorated, ready to go, and I'll probably decide to put another piece of paper on here. I'm kind of running out of papers that match, but this one I think matches. This is cardstock. I think I might put that on there, maybe, don't know. But anyway, so that is my cover. All right, so I'm gonna get some signatures ready, and then also wanted to mention that we'll be putting a piece of paper over here, and then definitely getting some glue in the gaps, and that's what's going to actually hold, sort of keep this from bending like this and pulling on the cover. So that stabilizes the cover. So another piece of fabric will go over here, just like we did right there. So I'm really, really happy with the way it's turning out. I'm very excited to get going on this journal. So I will be back with the next steps. All right, so I decided on this piece of paper, and it's just decorated paper, but it has a little bit of a sewing theme, so very cool. Just like a designer paper, but I probably got it Hobby Lobby. It was in a paper pack, I remember that. This is the fabric I picked for this spine cover here. I usually go for like more contrasty type things, but I thought this would look good. So I wanted to use this for sure. It's a homespun. I really, really like it. Okay, so I'm just gonna glue this spine like crazy. Now we will be sewing through this, like to put the signatures in, but I still want this to be nice and sturdy here. Try not to get my sleeve in there. And then I just want to crack this, fold it down a little bit so I can get glue right in that crack. And that interfacing that we have on the back of that fabric is going to protect that from the glue showing through, so that's great. So just smoothing it out a little bit. Okay, now I am going to grab this, center it top to bottom, left to right, and get that laid down. Make sure we're doing okay over here and down here. Looks good. It's getting stuck pretty fast here. Okay, and then I'm going to take a bone folder and just make sure I get the crease really smushed together with that front piece of fabric. Perfect. Love, love, love. Okay. And then need to put a little bit more glue just to finish this off. I think I was cleaning out a closet at my church yesterday and came across a bunch of paper bags, and I thought, you know what, one of these pattern envelope covers would be so cute on a paper bag journal. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing another couple paper bag journals. I think they're fantastic. Cindy got me started on those a while ago. She had done some like super grungy ones, so cute. So anyway, I think it'd be fun to do a sewing theme one. But yeah, those paper bags, you know, there's something about the sound and the feel of a paper bag. It's just pretty cool. So that's might be fun to do next. All right, so there we have it. Made sure to really get down in that crease, get some glue in there so that now the fabrics are sandwiched together, and then that will keep the hinge strong and will keep the covers from shifting. So there is our, I'm gonna bend this up a little bit more too while it's still dry, or I mean still wet, of course. That's what I meant. Nice. And there we have our book cover. So I'm going to let that completely dry, bent, and then we'll have a nice, flexible, sturdy spine. Book cover. Actually, the whole book cover, right? All right, so I am going to, the last step, I think, for the cover itself is to go ahead and ink the edges, and I will do that. I'm going to get some signatures put together, and then we'll go over how to actually put the signatures in. All right. I did decide to put a little sort of patch on here. This is just a piece of paper, a little piece of ephemera that I had in my folder, or my bag. It's actually a 2-gallon Ziploc bag of all the sewing little ephemera and items I've collected for sewing journals. And so this was already torn. It was already inked on the edges. I thought it took the burgundy and carried it over to the back cover just a little bit more. So I did glue that straight on there. All right, so this is the way it is looking. I found a template for my spine. I have a little bin with binding thread and my awl and my needles and my template, my spine templates. Every time I make a spine and I sew the signatures directly into the cover, I make a template so that it's all very neat and tidy and evenly spaced and all that. And so I make a template, which I did here, and amazingly, it fits the spine and the number of signatures perfectly. So I was super excited about that. Saves me from doing any measuring, really. I'm just eyeballing it to make sure it's gonna work. So now I'm just making sure. I did clip it on. So what I'm gonna do is at each intersection, I'm gonna punch a hole directly into my book cover here, my spine. So I'll be doing that. Make sure your finger's not directly underneath. And just punch right straight down. It doesn't have to be a huge hole either, because we're only putting a needle, and you know, it's a relatively big needle as far as needles go, but a needle and some thread. And I've mentioned this before in a video, but I've been enjoying using pearl cotton. And it's about the thickness of probably 4 strands of embroidery thread. Not strands, but plies of embroidery thread. And it just makes, the colors are fantastic, and it just makes a really nice weight for the thread that I'm using. Alright, so now all my holes are punched into the cover. Now what I'm going to do is take this template off, and then this is the top. I always mark the top just to make sure if there's any discrepancies, you'll always know which is the top. And it just helps with the look of it, because you could be off an 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch, and then your lines get wonky. And anyway, so the next thing then is this is the first signature line here, so I'm putting this on my first signature, and then clipping this in, making sure from top to bottom it's evenly spaced, and I'm just eyeballing that. And then I just pinch it really tight with my fingers, make sure that that's nice and together at the spine as much as possible, and then I will punch holes again. I'm gonna move this. Punch holes again, going straight down. I used to do this in a phone book. I think I I don't have that phone book anymore. There's no such thing as phone books anymore, I don't think. I haven't seen one anyway. And there's also cradles. You can get a bookbinding cradle, which would be kind of cool too. But I don't have that, so just eyeballing it and doing it as straight as possible. All right, so now I have my holes punched in my signature as well. And those holes obviously will line right up with my spine holes. I'm going to keep my clips on so my papers don't get all sideways on me. And you've probably seen this before, but I'm going to go straight down through the center hole. And there are lots of ways to make, you know, this, or to sew the signature in. You can do it somewhat fancy. Some people start at the top, some people start at the bottom, etc., etc. Lots of different ways. Okay, so I came out here. And now I'll be going back down into that hole that I punched already. And then up through the hole in the signature that I made. And it comes right through because it's all equally spaced because of my template. Okay, and then we're going to go back down into this hole down here. And through the spine hole. Just like that. And then we're going to come up through that center hole, which already has the string in it. Being careful, so I usually pull on this in the opposite direction to give myself room for that needle to go through without piercing the thread. And if it does pierce the thread, it's pretty easy to fix. And it's just kind of a common sense, just kind of pull it. Pull it out of the sort of piercing that you made. Okay, through the thread. All right, perfect. That looks great. So then you take one end of the thread on one side of this long vertical, and then one side of the thread, or one end of the thread on the opposite side. Make sure that it's nice and flat, and then pull it firmly, not too tight. Make sure I got the front. This is facing up. Okay. And then just tie a knot, a square knot. And then cut off the length. I like to kind of keep them long for really no reason. All right, and then you're good to take those clips off. Binder clips work well too, but this was actually kind of a simple type job here, so I just kept it with paper clips, and it seemed to work out just fine. All right, so all I did there was just kind of refolded the crease down a little bit. All right, and so there you have it. There's one signature in. I'll do the same thing with these next two. And then kind of recap real quickly, and I'm thinking about maybe putting a tassel here, so we'll see about that, and I'll be back in a minute, and we'll see what kind of inspiration we can get next. All right, so the signatures are in, and so this is what the spine looks like. I didn't mention it before, but I used like a rosy pink color for that. So they're all sewn in directly into the spine, and I am very happy with the way that turned out. I wanted to let you know a few things that I decided to do real quick on the inside covers. I put this multi-pocket ephemera holder, and this is a freebie on our Facebook group. So our Facebook group is Ideas Times 2, and you need to ask to join. It's no big deal, but you just need to ask to join, and then we'll accept, and then you have access to the files. So that is a freebie. I will decorate it just a little bit more, but I did decide to put that in the back. And then in the front, I decorated some envelopes This is using the back part of that pattern envelope, the back part of this here. And originally I was going to put it on the back of this, but to me the darker colors seemed to go better. So anyway, I did use it on these flaps. So these are 2 envelopes, and I just merely, you know, decorated them with paper on this side, because this side, I'll show you what I'm planning on doing here. I'm just going to stack these, and these are going to be little ephemera pockets as well. And I will glue the top one down first, and then the bottom one down last. The reason for that is so that when, and I'm going to leave this open in the back, so this won't get stuck on this envelope if this one is sitting on top. So I'm going to leave that open in the back for a larger item. So I'm just going to sort of eyeball that and see where I want to put it. I want to leave a little gap here for like some pieces of paper, a little notepad, or a tag or something to stick out right here. So I'm going to leave that open. So I'm just kind of eyeballing that, and then I'm going to, I might make just a tiny mark there, and then I'm going to glue this down just on the side edges, because we want that open so something can slip down in there. So I just ripped up some paper to decorate it, and then I sewed around the edges. I can see that a little bit better maybe, and inked the edges of those. Okay, now I'm going to find my little mark and go ahead and put that in place. So this envelope was just on the sides. You could also put some glue down here at the bottom, and that way you've got a little pocket that's not quite as deep, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to have something a little bit longer in the back there. And then this one will be all 3 edges, leaving the top open just like the other one. So this one will be the bottom, the very bottom of that back space there. And I'm just gonna overlap them, so kind of line them up side to side, but just overlap it, and then glue that down. And then one easy way to keep these flaps from getting in the way when you're using the book, it looks like they're going to lay just fine, but you can just put a decorative clip, not these boring silver ones, but you can put a decorative clip on those flaps to keep them from, you know, poking up and maybe getting caught on this page here. So lots of room now to have some fun ephemera in there. Put that back. Just slip it right in there. I still need to decorate this part and this part as well, but I thought that was kind of a good way to do that. And then I'll finish putting pockets in and decorating. Sewed a little ribbon on here. This was a ribbon the brand Simplicity had some kind of sewing accessories and stuff, so that was quite a few years ago. I bought some ribbons. They had these really pretty models on there. So anyway, so that is how you make, this is one way, let's put it that way, it's one way to make the journal cover from a sewing pattern envelope, and this is a vintage one. So lots of fun. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and you can find us on Etsy and Instagram and Facebook, and of course this YouTube channel, and every single location of our media is Ideas times 2. All right, thank you again, and we will catch you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.